go.
Turn it up.
I think I can hear the funky music.
Let's go. Well,
It's not even playing. I just hear it in my head.
hear it in your head. What is up, everybody? Welcome to a Friday edition of the DMVR Nuggets podcast.
Let's go.
Let's go, baby. You almost forgot. You almost forgot, but it is indeed a snowy Friday in Denver, Colorado. Beautiful snow.
Not anymore. Now it's just like a wet Friday.
I love it, man. I'm telling you, I love
love
today.
it?
I do, man. This is the time of year.
Insane.
I don't like the same weather every day, you guys. I like to mix it up a little bit. We had some heat. We wore shorts earlier. Today, flannel. You get all types of Adams this week.
Are you going to go on your shorts rant?
This is the this is the most like nobody likes the snow, so you like dig in deeper.
No way, this is not true. First of all, this is the type of I could do this. Never mind, we're not doing this. I'm not going to let you distract me from it. Instead, I'm going to introduce my panel over here. The little boy himself, Brennan Vogt.
Thanks, man. 30 years old pretty soon. I'm seeing two Denver legends tonight in concert. Shout out Tennis. And they're starting their tour tonight. And
Great
I'm very
sport.
excited.
Love.
I hear
I've
pickleball's
always been
better,
a big
though.
Nadal guy.
Oh, good one, you guys. Yeah, it's
Yes.
a great band, though.
Are there, who's opening? Pickleball? Let's go.
Wait, you said two. Tennis and then what else?
Well, there's two people in tennis. It's a two-person
It's a
group.
two-person.
Yeah,
I
two-person game.
Eric
I'm
played.
quite familiar.
Yeah,
Yes.
No, there-
he won state, I think.
There you go. And then over here, I got D-Line Co.
I actually know the band tennis.
Yeah, it's a good band.
Yeah. Let's go.
Have you ever played pickleball?
Yes.
Michael Malone went on a long rant yesterday about pickleball.
I am going to become a pickleball player. I've thought about this.
Yeah.
Please don't.
It doesn't matter.
Have you ever
Yeah.
watched somebody play pickleball?
Yeah.
It's the most boring thing you can do in
It
your
actually
day.
looks fun. Come
I
on,
didn't
Lynn.
say I'm
Come
going to be
on.
a pickleball
Watcher.
observer. I'm going to play it.
I will say though, Michael Malone says that he plays pickleball, including yesterday when asked like, "What are you going to do with your afternoon?" He's like, "Well, I play pickleball. I always do. I play pickleball." Like
Mike
to
Malone,
wind
I
down."
know you're listening. I know you're watching. I challenge you to pickleball.
By the way, we said it was
challenge
the
you.
first time we've ever walked out on Malone. I'm going to keep it real. Just too much pickleball talk for me.
Is that you were out there?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
early on.
I was
You
like,
were
I
like,
got some
I've
tweets
got
to
a
send.
limit to how much I can talk pickleball.
Yeah, I was like, are we
For
doing
sure.
King's Gossip? Oh, pickleball. Okay. Just kidding.
and then over there, looking fly as always,
Oh, thank
the
you.
MVP of the 2023 regular season. I'm being serious. Wynn dropped. Harrison Wynn, who dropped
Wow.
just like one last little regular season article, an
Little Salt Bae.
exclusive. Yeah, a little Salt Bay, an exclusive with Ish Smith that featured no shortage of bangers.
Yeah.
Harrison Wynn.
Ish Smith, what a guy. We were talking about like maybe who's the coolest guy on the Nuggets. It might be Ish Smith, man. Like if I could hang out with one dude on the Nuggets today, it might be Ish.
I think you can.
Yeah.
I think you could if you just asked. He'd probably,
Yeah.
I'm
Ish,
playing,
down
I'm just
to
playing
earth.
pickleball with Malone.
But what I love about
Rockies
Ish,
game?
and you can check out the article on thednvr.com, I asked him a ton of different, topics. Everything from like playing with Jokic for an entire season to his takes on the Nuggets rookies, everything in between also. And he just has a great perspective on the team, where everybody's at right now, what happened at the end of the season too.
Yeah.
And just heading into the playoffs, it was great.
Great quotes about Jokic, great quotes about Christian Brown, and a banger last line on Peyton Watson that I'll just leave right there. By the way, man, Peyton Watson, we haven't broken down a lot of the discussion that we had with Calvin Booth. If you missed that show, I'm telling you, what are you doing with your life? You need to go back. We had it on the show on Wednesday. He revealed a lot about just how he sees the world, man. And I just think he is such a like thoughtful person. And seeing the way that he makes decisions and has set himself up for this position to me is like one of those things that we will refer back to time and time again. But one of the things he said in there, obviously talking about Peyton Watson, this image of Peyton as a guy who is a brilliant mind guy. You know, we look at him, he goes, he's got all the measurables and he had this talent and he's played at a high level, this or that. And I don't think I'd ever heard anybody, scouts, people play any of this stuff. I don't think anybody has described him as somebody who has insane recall, and then also as a guy that can give a better scouting report than any other player on the team as a rookie.
Yeah.
To me, like this forms what I think of Peyton Watson now, and that comes from that interview. But then you hear these quotes from Ish Smith, and it's like all of a sudden when you hear that, everything you hear about him, you see through a different light, and you're like, oh yeah, look what his peers even say about him.
Yeah. The stuff that Calvin said about his just understanding of the game, and the example he gave was, if I need somebody to give me a scouting report on Luka Doncic, Peyton Watson, he's gonna like give me the best one.
It's also kind of a bad
I
example.
was going to say, I could give a scouting report on Luka Doncic.
Also, they haven't played against each other.
That's true.
But the
But
point
I
is
mean,
taken.
that's really high praise based on like the number of veterans and just the number of quality defenders that the Nuggets have. Like that proves that Peyton Watson, he's a student of the game. You know, like he takes his craft really seriously, and that's just really high praise.
That was really cool.
high.
What about you, D-Line? I mean, Watson. Is your perspective different having heard this? This wasn't something that I thought about him.
No, I mean, I'm sort of in like wait and see mode with Peyton Watson.
Oh, that
like,
could be too much hype, perhaps.
a little bit too much hype. I don't know. We'll see. I like everything I've seen from him so far, and I have seen him do things that are a little bit more cerebral, like being in the right position and like knowing when to jump and all this stuff, like keeping his head about him the same way that Christian Brown does. But I mean, it's, you know, obviously like Calvin's the guy that picked Peyton Watson, so he's a big believer in him, and he picked
biased.
He picked Peyton Watson in a place where I don't think anyone else was even looking at Peyton.
He
Watson.
wanted to trade up.
He wanted to trade up to get him, which would have been insane.
Trade up to 11, pick Peyton Watson. I was like, what?
Like he's like, they were going to kill me. They were going to kill me.
But
You guys saw where I wanted to pick him.
But I mean, like, I think that he's definitely the biggest supporter of Peyton Watson at this point. But I mean, we've all been, I think, converted pretty quickly into the Peyton fold.
It's less about whether or not he hit and more about the form of player, because the thing for me is, like, I just didn't think of him as a smart or dumb player. It's not that he plays dumb or plays smart. It's just that wasn't a thing that factored in because I hadn't heard it anywhere. And for
Defense,
him to
length.
exactly, and that's why when he's like, "No, man, this is a guy that like the details he
Sure.
can just like internalize." I'm like, okay, that's a cool detail.
And it sort of with the Christian Brown conversation too, there was I'm not sure if I can put my finger on the common denominator, but the evaluation was so much more thorough and specific than is this player good or good defender. Right. Like he doesn't feel like Peyton Watson was a ballsy pick because in addition to the physical profile, he knows about the recall. Christian, everyone could use a long rangey defender, but he knows that he's one at every level. And these things mean something to him. And it's really interesting because I think for me, scouting for our draft segment, so much of it is like, is this guy good or not? And does he fit? But
This guy can't shoot.
yeah, but it's such a more
His arms aren't long enough.
thoughtful
He's just not
process. Yeah, it's just really interesting to hear how thoughtful it is on Calvin's end.
So I really like it. Peyton Watson, I'm just so intrigued by him. I'm all in. I'm all in the way that I'm just. There was a weird thing with Peyton where Christian Brown was going to play and you wanted this or that, and you're like, I want him to work out. Whether you believe or not, let's put that in a side box. It's just I'm all in. With Peyton, it was more like skepticism, you know, like, I don't know. Summer League
Because
wasn't all
he was
impressive.
the project.
He was the
And
project.
those guys, some work out, some just don't.
Some are RJ Hampton.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
he's
when
like,
you take
all right.
a flyer. I mean,
It's a flyer. He
was
felt more like a flyer.
He did, absolutely. And I said this the whole time. Like, I like the idea of taking a flyer, but I don't like the idea of taking a flyer in the first round if it's just like purely
30th. So if he was 31st.
Well, they wouldn't have had the 31st. If it was like, I don't know, the 41st pick.
Well, they traded for the 30th. I'm saying if they traded for the 31st.
Well, no, dumb way to put that. But unless they got something else back and then, I mean, like, to me, it's like, okay, there is the art of the draft, which Tim Connolly has nailed. But Calvin is just like a straight shooter. He sees the guy he wants, he goes, he gets him. Like,
Right.
Here's a curious thing for you, Eric. Would you rather have had what will essentially be the 27th pick in this year's draft or Peyton Watson?
I mean, Peyton Watson, because
that's what they traded.
yes, his flyer it appears to be the right move. Like,
we won't really know.
We won't really know, but I mean, like, at that time, it was like, I hope he knows what he's doing, but, I'm going to defer to the guys that put hundreds and hundreds of hours in on this. But from the outsider's point of view, it's like, okay, please let this work. Like,
I will be curious. It will be one of those fun things because Denver having the fourth best record now, we'll get to see, like, okay, let's see who goes 27, 28, 29, 30, and then that'll be who you kind of compare them to. But at this moment, I look at it and I say with the value of wings and everything else, I'm just excited. And more importantly, whether he's good or not, it's easier to root for a guy that I have a story in my mind around now. It's not just that he's long and was good in high school. It's that, oh no, he has this mind that's actually unique. It's like Peyton Watson, the defensive savant, the Andre Iguodala savant.
I think he's a professional. I think there's a lot of Peyton's from California, friends with Kevin, friends with Russell. I think he likes that. I think he likes to see his name out there. But to have the context filled in the background of, but he's a professional, or at least it seems that way early. And we got that notion, I think, all the way back in Summer League, just asking so many questions, very reflective. So these are encouraging things to learn about a young guy.
Somebody asked who the mystery guest was. We were trying to get Peyton on. He might come in next week, so there's still a chance. He was supposed to be. Something fell through the cracks.
Why are we giving him all this airtime if he didn't come in?
You know what?
Yeah, let's talk about Flacco. I think Flacco should play.
Not making it.
Peyton Watson, I'm out.
I'm out. I'm completely
I've heard
out.
his recall's not that good.
He didn't remember to come do this show.
Later on in the show, guys.
Luka Doncic? I think Calvin meant Luka Samanic.
Oh my god! Later on in the show,
Jokic.
we're going to get into some of the mailbag questions that you sent. But I want to spend the first half of this show now, after this Peyton Watson, detour. I want to spend it talking about the stakes here, because I think it's important to discuss stakes before you go in. You don't want to seem too reactionary, but this is one that's very pivotal for the Nuggets. But let's talk about it as individuals. I want to do this game. The Nuggets players that we talk about have great games that leads to success, an average game that leads to an average, whatever you think the average is for the Nuggets. I think the average for the Nuggets would be either a Game 7 loss in the second round or a Western Conference Finals appearance. That would be, to me, like par, whatever you want to say there. So that, and then I want to say like a disappointing one. They lose in either the first or a second round that's not particularly close, and they underperform. And let's start with Jamal Murray, who I think there is a surprising amount at stake for him personally with the Nuggets. Let's start with the high end. And I'll go first on this just to kind of show you guys how I'm thinking about it. 3 years ago, coming out of the bubble, going into the bubble, it was Jokic's team and a bunch of guys that were just not stars. I felt like coming out of the bubble, you felt like Malone, Jokic, and Murray were a duo. And Jokic was the guy, but that those two together brought out the best of each other. The Nuggets have a great run this year where he plays well. I think that is back, and not only back, but solidified. To where, like, even next year, we're not going to be questioning this at any point.
I think that coming out of the bubble, Jamal Murray was the bigger star. Like, he showed out so much in that bubble. He was the one that went head to head with Donovan Mitchell. He's the one that, like, made all of these insane shots that really caught people's attention. And we haven't seen him since. He's not been in a playoff series since that happened.
When you say the bigger star, you don't mean the better player. You mean he was like shining brighter.
I think that he got more national attention.
When people thought of the Nuggets after the bubble, they thought of Jamal Murray first, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Not us in Denver, but outside of Denver.
Yeah.
Man, this is wild to me.
yeah.
I guess. I mean, clearly you three agree.
Look,
so
all the highlight packages and stuff that the Nuggets did sneak into, like their Murray bubble highlights.
Jamal Murray
like
against the Jazz, like that was the Nuggets in the bubble.
Gobert
Yeah, the
finish,
360 layup.
the LeBron finish, the up and under. These are
The
like
quote after Game 6.
like TikTok generation is getting that stuff.
Okay. There was a little Kobe Shaq hope, Stockton and Malone is almost a negative. It's almost pejorative because they didn't win, right? So it's like, oh, the goods runner up. Maybe Kobe Shaq, where you were like, man, these guys could end up becoming the dominant 1-2 punch, going forward. And I just don't. That lost all momentum with the injury, and then this year he didn't get over this hump to where he became a star. Yeah. But you make it to a Western Conference Finals as a minimum or beyond with him playing well, back on the table, and he's an all-star next year.
Right. He was a guy that was labeled as potentially like who's next after that bubble run.
Yeah.
He was up there in that group, and he's fallen off a lot since.
Yes.
It's like below Jalen Brunson now.
He's really low. But yes, a run to the Western Conference Finals puts him back on that level. I think then he will be one of those guys who could potentially be next. And I think he can get back to that level where he was supposed to be at.
I mean, like for the Nuggets, it's always just about attention. Like whether this is the only time in the calendar year you can count on people actually watching the Nuggets. And so if he shows people that he is back, that he is able, if the backometer is going to lead us to the truth, and he is in fact back to that level, Jamal Murray will get lots of shine. He'll get, and that's just it for anyone on the Denver Nuggets. Like, no one pays attention until they absolutely have to. And in the playoffs, they have to. So this is their time to like really make their name.
And then the other thing is, if he really shows out in these playoffs, Jamal Murray is going to have a rep as a playoff performer, like an elite postseason
this is great.
performer, a guy who goes above and beyond and just outperforms even the expectations that we have for him when the lights are brightest, because then it will be the last 2 times he's been in the playoffs, bubble, and this year he's absolutely showed out.
I think there's another level to it too. It can still go down as it was Jokic and Murray that led the Denver Nuggets to their first title.
Right.
And not, I mean, we all know how important Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton were, but what would you say? Giannis led the Bucks. I think there's a chance it can go down as Murray and Jokic. Now, we all know Jokic is as essential as any one figure, but just the narrative and the Denver sort of, like, we kind of, the Nuggets legend stuff, like we talk about that, the sort of fan Hall of Fame. Like, Murray can go side by, it's like putting his Hall of Fame plaque next to Jokic's.
I mean, let's be honest. LeBron and Dwayne Wade, LeBron and Kyrie, LeBron and Anthony Davis, LeBron, one of the greatest, if not the greatest player ever. And those series are thought of, or those championships are thought of, but like Kyrie really stepped up when it mattered or whatever. And I think for Murray it'd be the same. Let's take a first break because we're a little bit late here. On the other side, we'll do the downside now. What happens if it doesn't go that way?
Guys, Illegal Pete's right down the street from the DNVR bar. They got 10 locations in total. They've also collabed with us on our newest playoff shirt, 2023 official DNVR playoff shirt. But this episode of the DNVR Nuggets podcast brought to you by Illegal Pete's, and with grad season coming up, let's face it, you need food at your grad party. You need great food at your grad party for people to be happy. Cater with Illegal Pete's. If you're hosting a grad party, if you're going to one, catering.illegalpete's.com. Don't make yourself pull another all-nighter. Book your graduation catering ahead of time and do it with Illegal Pete's.
If you like, this is for the parents out there, right? This is what this ad is for. Want to get some big-time dad points? Cater Illegal Pete's, man.
Oh, it's that time of year. It's for dads and grads.
Dads and grads. You want to be your son, you've been worried about, is he proud of you? Little Illegal Pete's, man. Like, wow, Dad.
Nobody's going to be disappointed.
Wow, Dad, queso too? Unbelievable.
Guac? You paid extra for guac?
I forgive you for missing all of my baseball games.
No, Eric, we're doing a read. It's not
I'm sorry.
Not a memory. Not a memory.
Jesus, got two of the character there.
Catering.illegalpete's.com. Also,
it's a very Friday show.
It's Rocky season. Ooh. Do you want to sit behind home plate? Do you want to get great tickets to Rockies games? Check out the Game Time app. Use the code DNVR when you sign up and create an account. Redeem the code DNVR for $20 off your purchase from Game Time. Terms apply. But again, create an account. Redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. They've got tickets for the Rockies behind home plate. You can sit courtside for the Nuggets, right at the glass for the Avs, concert shows, sporting events, whatever you need. Game Time is your go-to for tickets. And again, download the app, create an account, redeem the code DNVR for $20 off your purchase.
Let us know in the chat, too, by the way. We were having a debate earlier at the DNVR headquarters about whether or not Rocky getting attacked by a random.
And a hero.
And being mildly hurt. I mean,
he was shaken up.
Shake it up. Whether that was really sad or hilarious. I'm not going to tell you which one I went with.
I'll tell you which one I went with. I personally want to nominate that gentleman for a Congressional Medal of Honor.
Or
Denverite of the year.
Or heroic.
He's going to jail.
Yeah, he probably is going to jail.
Listen,
they can't find him, though.
They can't find him, and sometimes Sometimes to be a hero, you have to go against the law. You know what I mean? If the law is unjust, then what is it?
This guy was Batman.
Some of the
basically,
great
in your eyes.
revolutions of our country's history have been against the law.
That's right.
The law, of course, being not attacking a very innocent bystander wearing a very embarrassing suit of a terrible
Did I say
mascot.
Rocky? I meant Dinger.
No
Dinger.
peripheral
Yeah,
vision.
Dinger.
Just
Dinger.
Not
as a-
Rocky.
just a
Dinger.
sitting duck, man.
All right, let's get back on track here. So the downside,
definitely couldn't see him.
The
No
downside of
peripheral
Jamal
vision.
Murray now is, of course, if the Nuggets lose. I mean, I'll go as far as to say this: there are scenarios where Murray plays great and they lose, but I think if the Nuggets lose early or get handled in the second round where they don't look competitive, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it probably Murray contributed to that by not being great.
Yeah.
I think that's very likely. What happens there?
I think there is a almost under discussed pressure on Jamal to deliver in these playoffs. The complete flip side of what we were just saying, the bubble was a long time ago, right? You guys did actually touch on it. Like that lost that momentum, whatever that was. And I think between the consistency issues, the injury, which isn't his fault, but it still happened, the fact that he's never been an all-star, when you talk about a team that in theory has everything they need to make a run and believes they do, obviously if they fall short, you're looking at the head coach near the top of the list. A second best player with a lot to prove, I think due diligence requires thorough consideration. You know, it's just possible. Not that I think they should or that it's a given, but I think it's a conversation that it has to be considered internally if he's the reason they fall short.
Vote is going up to the line, looking over. Not ready to jump, though.
I'm not jumping.
Not ready to
I'll jump it.
Go ahead. Who wants to go? Who wants to jump? This is a guy standing at the cliff getting ready to jump in the water. One guy too scared.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead and jump.
If Jamal Murray has a bad playoffs
Or below average.
or below average, I think people will look at the bubble and say, it was the bubble, it doesn't count.
Man.
And I think if the Nuggets really disappoint in the playoffs and he's the reason why, Denver might look to trade him. Like, I just think that would have to be something that's on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have just said that.
Yeah, that was succinct
I mean,
and
that's
correct.
the reality. Like, I don't want to sugarcoat it. It is what it is.
I agree.
You know?
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point now where we have to start to consider how Nikola Jokic's career is being managed. And if you have a number two that is not a true number two, he's been an excellent running mate for Nikola Jokic, but we're to the point now where it's like, you look at like Luka Doncic, like he with Jalen Brunson were able to do a lot of things, and they didn't re-sign him. He didn't have a running mate. Jokic deserves, requires, and must have a competent running mate so that we know what it looks like. We know how far Nikola Jokic can take you with him and then a bunch of other guys that are of varying degree, but not a true second. And so, I'm with Win. Like, if it goes badly, and we already know that there's, around town, there's rumblings about this because Jamal Murray is and has been so inconsistent, just in the regular season all the time. I don't think that those conversations are going to quiet. I think they'll get much, much louder about we have to get Jokic help. We have to have somebody he
Like
can
the
rely
media
on.
conversation you're saying.
Yeah, and just like the
It's
fans
just the
or whatever.
reality of a team that has a two-time MVP that wants to contend every year. Like, if you really fall short in the playoffs, you have to assess everything.
That's what I'm. Yeah, exactly.
So
That's due
this
diligence.
scenario is you either lose in the first round, which is like, okay, nothing should surprise anybody. But even if it's like you eke out a 6 or 7 game win against the Thunder, and then you go and just get smacked by whoever it is in round 2, that's the scenario. And
Sure.
Look, man, I'll go ahead and say it. I think that it would almost become more likely than not at that point. It is rare for an MVP to play the first 8 years of his career without a single All-Star.
Yep.
Without a single All-Star. Just randomly you get one, through eight years. Now, this is circumstantial. Murray was out for 2 years. Maybe he's an All-Star if this doesn't happen. But at the same time, I think you look at that and it is significantly more likely in a worst-case scenario than people realize. Now, we'll do the average. Murray has some good games. He has some bad games. Nuggets make it to the Western Conference Finals where they go down. That's sort of a, hey, they are close, but they're not yet there scenario. I don't think anything changes for Jamal Murray. I think it's the exact status quo. He's back.
Yeah.
The conversation doesn't change around him. I don't think he's more or less likely to be an All-Star next year. I just feel like that is a homeostasis. We just kind of remain here.
I agree.
Well,
agree, yeah.
I mean, the specifics
There will be
ma-
other changes probably, but yeah.
but the specifics matter. How does he look in the?
That's why I said up and down. Like he looks like the best player on the court in 4 games, and he looks average in 7 games, and he looks bad in 3.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, like at that point, it's like there's nothing pushing you one way or the other. It's sort of like it is sort of like, well, what do we do here? Like
And you root for his next year, him taking another leap. Like this was a stabilizing year, return year, and next year he takes a leap. That's where it's at. Let's go to Aaron Gordon now. Or actually, let's go to Michael Porter Jr. since he's more interesting to go off the bat. Michael Porter Jr., let's do the good scenario first. Plays really well.
okay.
Has a couple moments. I mean, for him being a max player, that means that he probably has a couple games that are like his best playoff games. He's had some good ones, but he has some big-time playoff games and moments, and the Nuggets go deep into the playoffs. How does this change for him? I'll let you start, Eric.
He's had big moments already. He had the Mike moment. He's actually like sneakily hit some really enormously big shots in Nuggets playoff runs.
True.
He has been targeted on defense in the past. It comes down to we're going to see if he's a liability or an asset, and this is going to be shown out a lot in this playoffs, like what we're able to rely on, especially if we play a team like Minnesota in the first round where Jokic will probably be needing to defer and kick the ball out a lot. If Michael Porter Jr. is able to just do what we know he can do and just knock down shots, his stock, I mean, everybody on the Nuggets has the opportunity to have their stock soar because, again, they're finally getting people paying attention to what they're doing night to night. We've seen Michael Porter Jr. like really become a reliable, if not like cerebral kind of player. Like he's been not just the guy that knocks it down, but can be deceptive. He can drive the rim. He can rebound and do all these things we know somebody with his physical gifts should be able to do. If he's disappointing, I don't know. I don't know that it matters, frankly, because there's no world you can move off of a max contract for Michael Porter Jr. unless you attach picks to it and everything. Like,
I don't know if that's true. If he has a good playoff,
but I'm saying like if he has a bad playoffs.
oh, you're doing both.
I'm just saying in general, like if he does well, it's going to be great for him. If he does bad, it's going to be bad for us, but fine for him because he's going to be part of the Nuggets regardless.
Yeah, I think what you might be looking at in terms of what changes for him, his role in the offense next season, is there a world where, I joke, get Mike the Rock, but is that a line in the summer?
Right.
Is that what they're thinking about? And then also his assignments for the offseason, because not all of Mike not getting the Rock is the team. There are things he needs to do to be able to get certain shots off, take advantage of certain advantageous positions. But I do think that discussion, you start going, maybe this guy needs to be taking the second most, maybe even some nights the most shots on this team.
To use the Laker metaphor with Kobe and Shaq again, I mean, this one almost fits even more for him since Jamal Murray is already the number 2, established guy. But there is a scenario where the Nuggets look really good, and Mike has his spots where he plays his best basketball, which, by the way, great players play their best basketball in the playoffs.
Yep.
Yeah.
They have their biggest moments. So there's an opportunity where the Nuggets win the title or go to the finals or just have a very impressive run here where he has some big games where, he becomes a star player next year, and there is a lot more of, hey, are we sure he's not the number 2?
Right.
I think the idea of Michael Porter Jr. being able to be higher in a pecking order is not a crazy one. I don't think he's there yet because his game is too unbalanced, but it is one of those ones that could become more in the zeitgeist if he has a good run here.
I agree, 100%. I think Michael Porter in these playoffs could change the entire NBA narrative around him as a player. And that narrative right now, and I really saw this when I did that media survey, surveying 15 media members from the West, just getting their take on the Nuggets. The narrative around Michael Porter Jr. is still, great offensive player, going to get played off the floor defensively, targeted every possession defensively,
right.
Try to get him in the pick and roll every time. He's going to foul every time. If he has a playoffs where he is what we think he's going to be offensively, and then on the other end, he holds his own and isn't a liability on defense, that narrative is going to shift.
Yep.
And if it shifts, I just think he's looked at as an entirely different player, not just from us, but from everybody in the league, than he's looked at right now.
Yeah. All right, downside. Here's the first thing that comes to mind. if he plays poorly, but I think it's even true if he plays like average, but the team plays poorly. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Mike would want out. And what I mean by that, again, we're doing a doomsday scenario here, but
Yeah, geez.
I mean, that's the game, though. The stakes, like
We're doing
playoffs.
both. We're doing both.
But I'm telling you, this is the playoffs. Like some people are like, "Oh, are you bad stuff or this or that?" And it's like, guys, the playoffs should have big swings, or else what are we doing here? It should be that there's stakes to him. But the stakes for him is, we talk about this year's defined by his willingness to fit into the team. At some point, that's like, yeah, but I'm better than this. My career's already going to be short because of my back. Maybe there's just look, man, I'm tired of this situation where I have to fit in and I have to be the one. Look at me. I played well in the playoffs, but we didn't win. Or I played poorly in the playoffs and everyone's blaming me, but all I do is stand in the corner and then get pick and rolled to death. So I just don't think that scenario is that crazy.
Yeah. It's probably not. You do have to give Michael Porter so much credit for buying in and taking a lesser role than he probably could be playing elsewhere over the last, couple of seasons that he's been healthy for. I just think after this playoffs is over, and if they don't win a championship, like we'll have such a clear idea of if this is the right second and third option to have around Nikola Jokic. Like I just think that will be clear.
Yeah.
Based on what happens.
And he can want out all he wants. I don't think that there's, when he signed that max contract, I think he's here.
I think there's a chance that it goes so well that door is opened and that he has the goodwill and that it's without any tension. Maybe eventually it's okay. I'm ready to expand my game.
When you
now.
were sitting there though, courtside, you kind of mentioned that he was a separate that he was separate from the team in a lot of ways. And again, we can read into body language with this stuff too much. My own point is, I'm just saying, Michael Porter, I don't know that he's a number one guy, but I do think that there are just scenarios where it's like, could he go be a number two guy in a scenario? And I remember talking to people about the Jeremy Grant thing where it's like, part of you, why would you lose a winning situation to go to a losing one? It sounds like that's a vice or a bad thing. But there is a virtue in of, I want to see how good I can be.
I think I can be better.
Nobody thinks I'm this good, and I think I'm this good, and I want to go find out. And there's almost something noble about that. And I could just see Porter being like, I get 11 shots a game. I feel like I can get 20. I just feel like I'm good at this, and I could scale this up, and I just want more. And maybe I have to take a step back as a team to take a step forward individually, and I would kind of understand it.
Yeah.
If things went poorly.
Yeah, I just don't see it.
Okay. And then the average one for Michael Porter, maybe he has a little bit more. I mean, Porter, if the Nuggets do just kind of meet their average, I do think Porter could be on the trade block. Just again, of like, if you're trying to improve your team, do you feel like you can get 80% of his offense but 150% of his defense? That's possible. He just plays an average game. The Nuggets go to the conference finals and lose.
Yeah.
It's possible.
I hate it. I don't want to talk about it.
You don't like this topic, I think, is what it is. Let's take our second break on the other side. Let's get to Jokic.
Oh, wait. Are we going doomsday with Jokic?
And Michael Malone.
Oh, boy.
Backus and Shanker. When you get hurt, Backus and Shanker is here to help. Backus and Shanker wins for Colorado families.
Talk about legacy. Wow.
They've been helping those who are seriously injured in Colorado for more than 25 years. And the greatest thing about Backus and Shanker is you don't pay them any money until they win your case. No upfront fees, no fees while they work on your case, no fees unless they win your case. They've won over $1 billion for their clients. Backus and Shanker helps with all kinds of injury cases where you weren't at fault. Car accidents, motorcycle, rideshare, pedestrians, trucks. They can even help you if you're injured at work. Give them a call. 303-222-2222 to find out if you have a case for free. Again, no money unless they win your case. Backus and Shanker wins. They've got neighborhood offices in Denver, Aurora, Englewood, Fort Collins, 30 lawyers, 100 staff members. Give them a call today, 222-2222. Also, check out Fubo TV if you want to watch your Nuggets and Avs on Altitude Sports. They've got 140 live channels of sports shows, movies, and news. You can stream live TV from any device with Fubo TV. You also get 1,000 hours of cloud DVR included at no extra charge. You can watch the local teams. Tons of stuff coming up locally in Colorado. We got the CU Buffs spring game, April 22nd on ESPN. You can watch that on Fubo TV. Nuggets, Avs, Rapids, of course. The NFL draft coming up. You can watch that on Fubo TV. Stream live TV from any device, 140 plus channels. Catch the Nuggets and Avs playoff run on Altitude and ABC with Fubo TV. Go to FuboTV.com/DNVR. FuboTV.com/DNVR to sign up for 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro.
Hell yeah.
FuboTV.com/DNVR.
Let's go.
All right, let's get to Nikola Jokic now. He has a huge narrative swing for him. I think he even has a big happiness swing for him. Let's not kid ourselves. I think Yoke's been great in playoffs. I really do. And I think most people, the numbers bear this out. His scoring has been fantastic. His rebounding has been fantastic. His clutchness has been fantastic. The only number I think that goes down for him are assists, which is kind of understandable, especially weighing over these last couple games or last couple years without a second star. For him, getting to a conference finals, he's the one guy that I think the bar is almost higher. If you get a conference finals, I almost feel like that's neutral for him specifically. But if they get to a finals or if they win the finals, I do feel like it is a huge, especially the win, an enormous swing in how he is discussed and viewed. He becomes a 2-time MVP and a 1-time champion. And to me, there's not many guys that can match both of those two things. There's not very many at all. And so automatically all the hyperbole that people like us believe he is capable of becoming, we get to say those things now, and there's not an actual empirical thing to debate it. You can be like, well, yeah, but this era or that. But you can't be like, well, hold on the accolades. And that's huge.
Yeah, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that. Like, everything is on the line for Nikola Jokic in these playoffs. How he might be viewed for the rest of his career is on the line, to be totally honest. I feel like my career is on the line with Nikola Jokic in these playoffs. If he does it, if he exceeds expectations, if he wins a championship, he's one of the greatest players in NBA history. If he doesn't, he's on the road to potentially looking like the Steve Nash, the Charles Barkley of this generation.
Right.
That's just what it is. I don't think anybody in the league has more at stake than Nikola Jokic entering these playoffs. And, deep down, I trust that he's going to show out. I think he's going to have a monster playoffs.
Yep,
because he's been a monster in the playoffs every single time that he's been there. But the pressure, the expectations, everything is on his shoulders these playoffs.
There's one, just comparing to the other guys we've talked about, there's one line I would stop short of crossing. He's not going anywhere. They could fall short, and we've talked about due diligence and thorough consideration about everything. It's not everything. You don't trade Jokic.
Of course not.
I know you're not suggesting
No,
that.
I've heard
I know that no one on this couch
sources in
is suggesting
town.
it.
I've heard some really on the pulse sources in town think that if he doesn't have a good playoffs, they should look to trade Nikola Jokic.
I don't think that part would happen.
Why?
And then he does.
You guys will just dismiss that? I think.
And then the discourse will be what
Very
it is
plugged in
for a
sources,
year,
yes.
and then he'll have a chance to win another one, maybe. But in terms of what he could get done this year, also just specifically because the reason he couldn't get that third one is because he hadn't won a title. Of course, it would be amazing if they don't give it to him and he wins the title. But I think you're right that he immediately is in that Dirk class of almost untouchable. If you want to criticize Jokic in the media post that title, go for it. It's not going to go well for you.
The floor of what you can say realistically becomes like, even
ridiculous.
if people are lower on Jokic after this than they should be, it's still, you can't lower him too low. You still have to have him like
if he wins
really
a
high.
championship, he's Giannis. It's the exact same
Right,
path
right, right.
Giannis.
But also,
right.
it's very similar. And then there's, with all due respect to everyone involved, including my good friends here, it's the Denver Nuggets, man. They have never been to a finals. They've never been.
Right.
They just got their first
Oh,
one
it's
seed.
the same with Dirk doing it in Dallas.
exactly-
it's so different.
this
It's
is
like, no, if you
exact-
did it in Denver, it's
that-
just worth more.
He might only need the one for us to get all these takes off. And if you want to argue a wall,
Right, exactly.
So I think he has a chance to solidify all that.
Definitely.
And then honestly, the thing with Jokic is we always talk about what can he get better at. There is just a level of confidence and leadership and authority you get to speak from when you're a champion. There's just a different level. And I really want to see post-champion Jokic. I just hope we get to see it for a while before he retires, where it's like, oh yeah, remember when he won the title and then he couldn't be bothered? He shot 44% from three.
I did. It's my greatest I hope so much that it happens. It also terrifies me that he'll take full seasons off after that. So, like,
Might be that actually.
Definitely. Be
like
that
I don't.
one.
Jokic, like he does what he wants.
Kale, can you bring that ring culture comment up? Because I've seen Joshua, and I'm not trying to drag you because it's the other side of this, the patience. I just think we're too many years into this, and after the injuries and the runway, with Jokic being the best player in the world or one of them for 3 straight years, it's not about being reactionary. It's actually due diligence to consider changing things up at that point. I agree with I loved the whole, they don't need to change this core up just because they were falling short. I just think we've reached the point where that conversation is in a different place. It's crossed a certain threshold where all those years later, you might be doing Jokic first and foremost a disservice if you're not thinking very carefully about everything you can do to improve the roster.
Yeah. The flip side of this is horrendous. If they underperform, especially if Jokic plays bad, which is almost unfathomable, especially early on. But if they underperform, if they lose, even in a second round where they look not meaningfully different than they did with Murray, it's a doomsday scenario for him as well. Because then next season, there's just nothing that will quiet that noise.
Nope.
Totally. It will. He could average a 50-point triple-double, and it won't quiet the noise. It will be one of those things where we thought this year's season was tough because it felt like it was a prelude to an appetizer to the real course. Next year would be in 82 games what we saw the last 4 weeks. Nothing good matters. Only bad things matter.
Yeah. That would be hell. That would actually be hell.
It would absolutely, yes. And it would, yes, we would find ourselves in, I mean, I can't, I can't even go there. I can't even go there. It would be bad. Yeah, it would be really bad. Let's just hope it doesn't happen. Yeah, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
Let's go to Michael Malone. The upside of this is huge. If they make it far enough that he retains his job, meaning I don't know what that is, but let's say they look really impressive and just come up short or up to winning it all. I just feel like Michael Malone comes back next season and has a realistic chance at catching George Karl and Doug Moe. I think it's going to take him 2 seasons. I think he has next year and then like a little bit of the following season. That becomes a cool storyline going forward. It's like, man, he has a chance to really become the winningest coach in Nuggets history. He extends his run. And I just think we all think of him a little bit differently. Just like with any player, it's like, okay, well, they've proven they can get a team this far. It would be a huge win for him.
We're talking about an industry that is wholly and completely results oriented. It doesn't. There is all of the time that you fill in talking about what I think this. But the nice thing about sports is that it is truly a meritocracy, and there is a way to quiet things and quiet the noise, and it's just by performing and winning. If you win, you're untouchable. If you lose, you're very touchable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like you can look at Doc Rivers like we do all the time and be like, man, that guy is an idiot. But then also that guy's won a championship, and like he was absolutely untouchable for the longest time. It's gotten him job after job after job. Like you win in this league, you become minted. You're official. Like Budenholzer, same way. Like,
Budenholzer is the perfect example.
Yes, all these guys that you would look at and you'd be like, under different circumstances, you'd be like, man, this guy's a moron. Like these rotations are terrible.
Budenholzer's the ultimate.
Because Budenholzer was probably going to get fired if the Bucks didn't win the championship that year.
Certainly.
And I don't know if that is exactly what Michael Malone is facing, but it certainly feels like something similar, in a similar vein. And now Mike Budenholzer is probably going to be the coach in Milwaukee, at least for the next couple of years. And he has been the coach there since they won that championship a couple of years ago now. So that's what could be the path for Michael Malone. If the Nuggets win a championship this year, if he's the coach going forward, there's a path where he's the best Nuggets coach ever.
Yep.
That's a realistic pathway.
The downside, and I saw a comment in here a little bit earlier from, I think it was Kobeman. Yeah, John Kobeman. He says anything past round 1, Malone is safe. Strong disagree.
Yeah,
Strong disagree. Round 1 is like, should be a given. I'm not saying it is a given, but round 1, when you're the 1 seed, that's not like, hey, good job today.
No.
If you're the 1 seed, you should absolutely smoke your opponent in round 1, especially a 1 seed like the Nuggets.
I think Malone, I don't want to say is on the hot seat because that implies he did something wrong, and I don't think he has. But I do think that the Nuggets are on a fork in the road moment where it's like they're either going to go one way or the other. And if you don't go the right way, you probably do just need to make a change in the voice and this or that. So I actually think there's a lot at stake for the downside of this.
If they're healthy and they lose in the second round, we are at bare minimum having that conversation on this show. I'm sure it's a conversation internally too at that point.
I think he's probably gone if they lose in the second round and they're fully healthy.
I do too.
I feel the same way. So
Oh, man.
Malone has, I think, is like the answer to all these questions. Who has the most pressure and most at stake?
Because he literally has a job.
And probably who's most aware of that. I think he's carrying it with him every day right now. I think he's the answer to all these questions.
And it should be this way. I just don't think these things are hot takey or unfair. This
is life as a contender with an all-time great player.
Isn't he like the fourth most tenured coach in the NBA behind Popovich, Spoelstra,
and Steve Kerr?
You're talking about 3 NBA champions.
Yep.
And then Michael Malone.
Right.
So it's not unfair to say a guy that has been given 8 years and a 2-time MVP should be expected to take his team farther, or at least as far as expectation and stuff. And again, I love Malone, but it's just the reality of the situation. And then the average, I will say for him, kind of similar to, I think he's more like Michael Porter, where if you go to the Western Conference Finals and you put up a good fight, but you lose where nobody thought you were one play away. You know, it's more like, yeah, you just got outplayed in 6 games and they get lost. Even then, I feel like that's when it's 50-50, where the team has to be like, yeah, but we weren't an inch away. We weren't just one play away. We were a little bit more than that. And is the coach the thing that can get us over the hump? So I think he's more like Michael Porter than he is Jamal Murray in that regard.
Mm-hmm. The conversation about around Malone for years now has been like, is Michael Malone the Mark Jackson of the Denver Nuggets? Is he able to get them to a point, but then you need to bring in a new tactician in Steve Kerr to get them over the hump and turn them into the Dynasty Warriors? I've heard this for years and years and years and years. It's only going to get louder if we don't see success in the playoffs. And
can I give you another one? Because Mark Jackson, I think, was a bad coach.
Yeah.
And Steve Kerr, I think, is a good coach.
Yes.
I would actually maybe go more towards Dwayne Casey and Nick Nurse, who I think in the immediate aftermath of that, it was like, well, Nick Nurse is a great coach. Might not be. It might be that they were equal coaches. One was just different at the right time. And it might be that with Malone, again, that it's not, is it bad? It's just that 8 years, sometimes you just need a new voice saying slightly different but equal things.
The only thing that makes me so terrified at that very idea is that I've seen what it can look like if you have playoff disappointment and you remove a very successful coach in George Karl and you replace him with a hot new candidate, and it just destroys the team. Just absolutely.
There's as many, if not more, examples like that than there are of getting the right coach.
Yes, I need, like, if we're talking about moving on from Michael Malone, I need to see very clear evidence that he was at fault because he was asleep at the wheel. He made bad decisions. It wasn't just like he wasn't able to motivate the players. Like, to me, that's not part of it.
I'm going to disagree with that a little bit.
Good.
I think he's the guy that you don't necessarily have to see active mistakes, honestly. I think if you look at the team and you go, they were good enough to win, they came up just short. Again, now we all know why they came up short in the last couple seasons, but that's still the reality. I think the very first place you look is the coach. Like, this team is good enough, but what we just brought to the table after that season wasn't. I think that's when you start thinking about, does another voice make that difference, those extra 5%?
But it's the same as trading Jamal. Like, you could trade him and it goes worse for you. It's just like that's the
right
reason
about that. That's the risk.
Or Michael Porter or any of these things where you're like, you know what, Jamal Murray's just not the guy. Let's go trade him for Damian Lillard. He's only got a couple years, Dame, but it's it's like, actually that didn't help, and now Murray's going off. It happens, man. Like, there's risk in any type of changing your course, but there's also risk in staying who you are and being the Raptors before they traded for Kawhi Leonard, which, again, most teams would trade. The Nuggets right now would trade for 2019 Kawhi Leonard. If they presented an opportunity, they'd be like, yes, we don't have one of those. We'll take it. If
they disappoint.
It cost them DeMar DeRozan. Like, Denver has Jokic. They wouldn't trade Jokic for that guy. But if you could trade for 2019 Kawhi Leonard, you would trade Jamal Murray for him. A beloved hometown player, you'd be like, yeah, but this is an all-star who might be an MVP.
You're right.
It's about getting the most out of all of these guys.
All right, let's take a break on the other side. We got some mailbag questions to get to. You guys sent us some good ones. We're going to run through the top of those.
Pins and Aces is the official golf apparel partner of ALLCITY and DNVR.
Let's go.
Man, I love pins and aces. They've
Just
got
ordered some today.
awesome polos, hats, golf bags. They've got the beer sleeve. They've also got
Liquor stick.
the liquor.
That's what I got, by the way.
You got.
I
the
got
liquor.
the liquor stick.
That's the most degenerate thing that I've been.
I know.
Never been
Just
so
a
proud
whole
of you.
stick of liquor
Whole
in
stick
your
of-
golf bag.
Holds like 750
I think it holds a
milliliters.
750 of your preferred liquor.
Yes, sir.
And it looks like a golf club. And you just put it in your golf bag.
You guys are going to want to be golfing with me.
You need your driver, your 9-iron, your 7-iron, your wedge,
liquor
your
stick.
putter,
Your seven beers.
and then your
750
beer
mil.
sleeve and liquor stick. Then you're set.
Little whiskey and then you got your Dr. Pepper.
Check out pinsandaces.com. Use the code DNVR to get 15% off your first order and get free shipping.
Your little tea is like a weed pipe.
Pinsandaces.com. Use the code DNVR. 15% off your first order and get free shipping.
and also collaboration coming up with the NVR.
Whoa, what?
We'll see.
Wow.
We'll see, but
What's
it's going-
next after the beer sleeve and liquor stick?
I made. Well, I don't want to give too much away, but it's. If you want to hide explosives, it's made. for it.
Jesus. All
Like
right.
drugs would be the
Kale,
next
will you
logical
open up
step.
the mailbag for us? Reach deep into the mailbag and find us some mail?
Mail time.
Get in there.
Oh,
Really
man.
rummage around. you
Get
know?
deep in
Who
there.
wants to read off?
Justin Galt. How many? I love this question. How many different?
Did you just read it like Christian Brown? Is that what just
I think I did, dude. In my defense, I've had to do that all year. How many different guys will be the king of the game in round one?
It's a great question.
And who is your hot take for unexpected king of the game in for one game in the series?
Eric.
Jokic every game.
That's going to be my take.
We've done this show a million times. Every time we're like, we can't give it to Jokic. He totally deserves it. We can't give it to him again. It's going to be Jokic every time. I mean,
In the
we might-
playoffs, I don't think we have to grade on a curve as much.
No,
can't.
we'll absolutely give it to Jokic every time when he deserves it. Although Murray, we've seen Murray have moments.
I mean, Murray in the 2020 bubble,
he would have had.
he would have had probably, well, obviously in the Jazz series, more king of the games.
Yes.
Clippers series, he would have had it in game 7, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he would have had more than Jokic, but it would have been close.
We'll see. I mean, I can foresee a universe where we do have a Porter quarter that leads to a Porter coronation.
Porner.
Porner. A porination. How far off are we?
I think
about
Porter's
really
going to
off.
steal one.
Corny.
I think Porter's going to steal
Out of
one.
10, let's just say 10 because it's easy to do percentages there. Out of 10, what's the breakdown?
I put the over-under at 7.5.
I'm gonna say
Jokic's?
seven Yokes, 2 Jamals, 1 Michael.
Yeah, that feels right.
Also known as my perfect roster.
Yeah.
All right. If it was not those 3, who's most likely to get one? Because I
AG.
do think as much as we
AG.
say... As much as we say they don't grade on a curve, there is a world in which AG grabs 15 rebounds
yeah.
and hits the game winner.
And a
dude.
huge,
You know what I mean? Like,
defensive
it's like,
performance.
well, Yoke has a 30-point triple-double, but we're like, yeah,
Aaron
but Gordon won it.
locks down Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Locks
Christian-
down Kevin Durant.
Christian Brown locks down SGA.
I mean,
closes with
gonna
him?
be
Is that going to
tough.
be enough?
There's no way.
I don't
he's
think
gonna
it's
shine.
gonna be
Is that
enough.
even enough?
We've never given it to just a guy that locked somebody down. They also have to be shining on the offensive end.
to be honest with you, have we ever locked somebody down?
That's
in the playoffs?
was good. It's a fair count.
Gary Harris might have been king of the game in Game
Yeah, I think
7.
we
If it weren't
did.
for, but Yoke had a
Probably did.
30-point piece
Oh,
and
yeah.
a game winner.
Probably
It'll be
wasn't.
tough. All right, what's the next one? I like that one though, but I
That's a
think
good
Yoke
question.
gets a lot of king of the game.
AG can steal one. If we get the Wolves, which backup big would Denver play? Although Nas Reed is hurt, the Wolves could and should stagger Cat and Gobert. So is it DJ, Thomas Bryant, Zeke? What are we thinking? fellas?
So this is a real question that if they
Great
play
question.
if they play the Timberwolves, this will be a big thing. I talked about it on Locked On Nuggets today with Matt Moore. I think it's smart for the Timberwolves to stagger Towns
Yes.
with
Yeah.
the bench
Yeah.
because Denver doesn't really have a great answer to this very question. I don't know that you could put Aaron Gordon there. I think he'll pick up fouls and I think he'll be undersized. I would say Zeke Naji.
Yep, Zeke.
I
But-
think it would be DeAndre Jordan.
I think I'm with Wind.
I think it would be
He would
DeAndre
get
Jordan.
so smoked by Towns, I think.
I just
Oh,
think
it's
the
Towns,
Nuggets
yeah.
would look at it, that they would look at it as, look, we need a guy to rebound on that second unit if we're going up against Minnesota. And I think that guy would be DeAndre Jordan. I do.
I think that Cat's game has gotten more perimeter based since Gobert has shown up, and that's where Zeke shines defensively. Like,
true.
He's not in there banging, but Cat really isn't in there banging either. We'll see. But I think that Zeke Naji, just with his quickness and his ability to move side to side, is like a much stauncher defensive presence against Cat than anybody else would be. We'll see.
I don't feel great about that though. Do you?
I don't feel great about any of our options. I mean, like at a certain point, you're like, well, you're just kind of sending bodies at him to either get him in foul trouble or to commit fouls on him. But I mean, I think there'll be some sort of a platoon also. Like, I don't think there'll just be one answer to go up against him. So that's what I think.
Where's Zeke Naji from?
Minnesota.
Oh.
I had no idea.
I don't know if that matters at all.
You think that's going to factor into Mike Malone's game
He
plan?
played in front of his
Zeke's got friends and family in the crowd tonight. Let's throw him out there. It's also his birthday. Let's play him.
Towns up the bench. Come on, man. It's
actually
your
think-
hometown.
D-line may have convinced me. Jordan might make more sense if it was Rudy staggering. But
Yes.
if Cat's playing with the bench.
Yes.
I could see Zeke.
All right, what's our next one?
It's gonna be Jeff Green.
Jeff Green,
It's gonna be
actually.
Jeff Green.
John's so right.
All right, Super Chats, we'll run through these real quick.
Don't choose the Nug Life. The Nug Life chose me. What's your guys' thoughts on Nuggets playoff mantra this year? Could be better in my honest
Good thing
opinion.
you asked.
I don't like to besmirch the marketing department.
Well,
I'm
we have a
agreeing with you.
playoff.
These are
We have
real
a playoff
people.
mantra.
These are
is what
real
I'm
people that are
saying.
doing it. Bring it in, whatever. I don't really care for it, but whatever. I'm not gonna make it.
yeah,
relevant.
but we just made our own, which is step up time.
Step up time.
Hey, what happens when you
Step up
don't
time.
skip steps and reach the last step?
Last step, dude.
It's
You
step up time.
It's time to step up. And it's serious, man. 3 years of waiting. It's time to step up. It's just
is.
time.
Step up.
It is time. I love
Ryan
the model.
Kelly, very upset. Vote didn't wear a flower shirt in the snowy weather. I'm not sure if these two sentences are related. Murray is off in injury year. Does that cut him some slack for the playoffs if it's bad?
Nope.
Does that cut you off?
No, he's saying
Does
He's
that
talking about
cut him
Jamal.
slack?
because Jamal is coming back from injury this year, should expectations be lowered?
I'm telling you, when it's all said and done, I will. If Murray is bad this year, I will say Murray cost Jokic 3 years of prime, and that 2 of them he was in. Not by those ones are not his own fault, but 2 years and then 1 year he was bad, and it's just like there's no way to get around it. He was in his apex prime and didn't have a running mate available to him in those years.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that. I hope it's not true, but that's how it's at. We got one more time for one more mailbag.
Mullen,
question.
If we lose in the WSF, Western Conference Finals, I'm assuming.
Semifinal maybe.
Oh, okay. Either way, would trading KCP and Bruce and a pick for OG put Denver over the top? Starting 5, Murray, OG, MPJ, Jokic.
Trading. Well, we can't trade Bruce.
can't-
KCP and Bruce and a pick for OG.
I almost think KCP might be a better fit than OG for the
I was just going to
Nuggets.
say, like, I don't think I have a
too
hard time
big, yeah.
imagining finding a better combination of players for this lineup. Like the only thing that you can look at, in my opinion, is that does Jokic have a good enough running mate? Like we keep saying,
Right.
that is ultimately the measure, and it's like as far as like around the edges, like the other guys, like I don't think OG and
Also-
MLB makes it better.
Toronto just basically held everyone hostage for 4 first-round picks for OG, so that any package like that isn't
Well,
getting it done.
they might have to lower their asking price.
4.
Yeah, but that's still.
Yeah,
a
you
little
can
low.
thank Tim Conley for that. He
Give me
ruined
a-
the trade market.
Give me another mailbag question, Kale.
Since 1950, the Western Conference winner has been lower than a 3 seed only 4 times. For reference, those were the 06 Mavericks, 95 Rockets, 81 Rockets, and 78 Supersonics. This year, which team in the West is the biggest threat to become the 5th team lower than a 3 seed to win the West?
Golden State Warriors.
That's
full
the
stop.
easy answer.
Full stop.
Yeah,
And I mean, to me, they're the biggest threat in the Western Conference.
definitely, no question.
So I like it.
The
We got time for one more.
reigning champions.
By the way, this year, some historical precedent's going to be broken. Every team has one of these, where it's like no team's ever done it with these indicators.
Yeah.
Just for fun, who do you think will be the first Nugget to drop a 40 bomb in the
Oh,
playoffs?
I like this.
Pretty sure it's a 2-man race, but still interesting.
I'm going to go with Jokic.
Yeah, let's phone Miroslav in here. it's always Jokic.
I think Jokic could have it game 1 of the first round.
Depends on who they're playing.
If it's Minnesota, the Murray
it's
odds go
it's
way
Murray,
up.
yeah. If
Right.
it's Minnesota, it's
OKC,
Murray.
Jokic.
I think if it's
OKC,
Minnesota, it's 50-50. If it's OKC, I think.
If it's OKC, Jokic has 60 points in the first game.
which I would love to see. By the way, a sneaky, lame storyline. You can hit that outro music. The 76ers drawing the Nets. There's a chance the Nets can compete in that one by hitting threes or whatever, but you know how they're not going to compete? By slowing Joel Embiid down. He is going to average 40 points per game in the first round against a crappy team that thought they were tanking when they made a trade.
Well, listen, Jokic has the same opportunity. Like,
It's true
he's
against the
not-
Thunder.
he
If it's the
absolutely-
Thunder.
Could be
If it's
playing
the
the
Thunder.
Thunder.
If it's the Thunder, honestly, the Thunder would be like playing against the Nets.
Yes.
It'd be worse, man. The Thunder are 40 and 42 this season.
Yeah, but they're 41 and 41. And honestly, like, who is scarier?
But they were trying for half the year with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, but they're not that team now. What
I
I'm
know.
saying is right now, Shea is better than Mikal Bridges as terms of like a player.
Right.
And then everybody else is just like role players or whatever. I guess they're a little bit younger around the edges, but I don't know. Either way, it would be cool to see Embiid and Yoke putting up some monsters.
Yes.
And I guess
Sure
Giannis
they
is going to
will.
put up monster
They better.
numbers against
They
whoever.
both better.
Whoever manages to win this play-in game in the East today, which is, by the way, I'm like so not interested in
Speaking
Bulls
of the Eastern Conference, last second super chat from Laking Ball. No hate, but what is said about the Nuggets if they underperform and Jokic's legacy is under fire and the Celtics will win the chip? The Bucks are not good. I think that
This is now proof that Laking Ball doesn't watch the show, because that was literally a whole segment.
Yeah, I think that is true. I think
He
that's
just
true.
chimes in. We cracked the code. He chimes in at the last second to super chat.
We
which,
love
you know
him,
what?
though. We
I
love him.
respect.
We'll take it.
We
Mostly
love
'cause
our
it pays-
hater
it
homie.
pays
Hey,
us.
Laking, if the Celtics win the finals, I'll send you all your super chat money back.
I don't know if you realize what you
no,
just
I
said.
won't. I'm just kidding. I don't mean that. It's not legally binding, and I don't even
Why
know
would
who
you
you
even
are.
say that?
I don't even know who you are.
Look,
Can't make me.
listen to me. If the
Just no,
Celtics,
no. You know what? I'm standing on it.
hey,
The Celtics
let's
are not
go.
winning the
I
finals.
can't
Take
believe
that out
I'm
of his
rooting for the
personal
Celtics.
paycheck.
This
here's
is
why it's great, because if
unbelievable.
the Celtics win the finals this year, the Nuggets don't, we'll never see vote again.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I know.
Good luck finding me
'Cause, well, I know. We know where you'll be. I mean,
on my way back to New Jersey.
Oh, jeez. Everybody hit that like button on the way